So as well as directing the film, you're also a co-writer as well. I just wondered where the inspiration came from for this and why you wanted to make your feature debut with this one.
Yeah, it came from my own life. I in high school used to play poker at my friend's house right when all the freshman girls ditched us in ninth grade, and we had absolutely nothing to do. This was the idea that we came up with. Worked pretty well, actually. It occupied the time. And then as far as, what attracted me to it, it's so cinematic. I think Martin Scorsese movies had a really big effect on me. I studied him in film school and just obsessively watched his movies. So the fact or the prospect of Will and Amy starting in a normal movie and then ending up in a Scorsese movie was just really funny to me. So I knew that I could inject a lot of style into it as the movie went on, and that would become the joke. I almost think that the more seriously and the more epic we treated it, the funnier it would be. That was kind of the operating principle. So it was really important not to, go soft comedy on any of the parts that are very gangster. It's like, well, what if it was like a gangster movie? How would you and I, and I'm assuming a lot about you, but how would you and I respond to it? Or how would you and I try to intimidate a cheater who we found at our, place? Like that, those questions of what a normal dad type individual would do just made me crack up. So that was kind of the initial attraction.
Yeah, and when it came to the look of the film, were you inspired by any other movies in particular? And what were kind of your guiding principles for your cinematographer as well? Because it looks very cool.
Oh yeah, no, it was a tough search, honestly, finding the right cinematographer. What attracted me to Jas Shelton, who shot it, was that he'd just done Keanu for Key and Peele, and that was shot like a gangster movie. There was a darkness to that I really found like refreshing in a comedy. He had also shot a lot of the the Duplass brothers movies, which is so natural. And actually Togetherness is like, I think, the perfect kind of blend of their more like verite style and more cinematic. So kind of having that feel to the normal part and then going full gangster and full Scorsese for the gangster parts, that was fun. Being able to flex the directing muscles or to just, try to do a style. It was just such a challenge and such a fun time that they all got into it too. Sorry, I'm looking at Will wearing women's sunglasses over there, and it just makes me laugh.
And you work closely with Judd Apatow, and I just wondered what you took from him about how to make a successful comedy movie from your time working with him.
Right. I mean, I could take 3 hours to list it all, but mainly Judd shoots a lot of coverage and a lot of alts, so never happy with just the joke that we've specialty crafted for over 2 years. There's probably another funny joke out there, and so on the day you're trying alternate jokes or even alternate performances, alternate plot points, because you never know. You get into editorial. What if you cut the scene after this? What if you have to go right from this to that one? What if this joke's not funny? What if he's too mean in this scene and you need a little edge of softness? All of those questions and self-doubt, healthy self-doubt, I learned from Judd Apatow. I think there's a looseness about the script writing process too, and an ability to let go of the words you've written that I really admired. There's a bravery involved in cutting stuff that's not working that I took from him, and from Nick Stoller and Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg, who also learned from him. Like I'm stealing from the derivatives I'm stealing from the offshoots of Judd as well as Judd himself. So it's I'm trying to take from everybody that I've learned from and try to bring it together in this movie.
And the film is filled with very talented comedians, but obviously led by Will and Amy.
Yeah.
What would you say is the secret as a filmmaker of kind of allowing them to be their funniest? Because obviously sometimes you see a comedy and the people are funny, but it just doesn't work. But in this case, it does. And how do you sort of go about doing that?
I mean, I think cheering on whenever they do something right, or like whenever something is resonating to me, I try to share how much it is exciting me. So I will yell on set, I'll crack up, I'll ruin takes. Like I want them to know how awesome they are. And then I try to yell out stuff. If I think of a joke on, I try not to interrupt them, which was part of the struggle, is like, step back, easy. But that balance of letting them do their thing, they're professionals, they've done this before, they can almost self-direct. And then really, when something isn't how I pictured it, or, hey, what if we tried it that way? Being outspoken and saying, hey, what about this for this reason? And then, really trying to guide that ship. It's both not taking yourself seriously, but taking yourself seriously enough to know that you've got a vision and that you can take it where it needs to go together.
And I was quite surprised by how invested I was in the relationship that Amy and Will's characters have and their marriage. And it reminded me a bit of the Rose Byrne-Seth Rogen relationship in Neighbours. And, we actually really like these people. And I just wondered how important it is, you think, to have some sort of sense of things being grounded in reality when you have a kind of high concept comedy movie.
I think you're dead in the water without it. I feel like I can't make a movie that's not, at least the entry point isn't reality. Part of what I like to do is take, ordinary people, put them in extraordinary circumstances and watch them act in extraordinary ways, or really extraordinarily stupid ways, as in this case. And I think that's key to comedy, especially now. Audiences don't accept the 80s style, hey, what if there was a dead guy? Anyway, they don't accept the 80s premises anymore, where it's like, here's a wacky place with all these
Freaky
wacky
Friday
people.
Or something
right.
Like that.
You can't get away with it anymore. You need that almost documentary-like entry point, like, tuition is an actual problem. Paying for college is an actual problem. I set up a 529, and I'm looking at the number, and it's not the number that it's one semester of college even. So that anxiety is all real. So I think if you have the entry point that is very grounded and very real, you can take it to an absurd place, and people will follow along as long as all the steps to get there are logical or real, or you could see yourself doing.
And what about striking the right tone when it comes to some of the more sort of extreme material in the film? Like Will's face gets covered in blood at one point, where he can sort of give too much away, and then there's the fight night scene, which is brilliantly shot.
Thanks.
Yeah, well, just talk a bit about getting the tone right for that. So I guess it's not sort of too extreme and doesn't take you out, and it's still funny.
I think it's too extreme. I mean, I almost think we took it too far, and that's part of the joke. Is that if it's you and I there, what is the most shocking thing, and what would send us into a tailspin as a human being, even? Like, to me, there's violence in gangster movies that people forget about later, the characters, forget about it. But what if Will is haunted by it? What if he sees, horrifying imagery everywhere? That was really important to me, keeping that in, because it's human. So the test of like, okay, here's a genre convention, here's how Heisenberg might deal with it, but I'm not Heisenberg, nor could I be. And so that was part of the joke, was exploring, you and I being faced with those issues. That was funny to me.
Yeah. And how about the scene where Will's face gets covered in the blood?
Yeah.
Just getting the amount of blood right.
Yeah. We did a blood test that we had way more blood than necessary, gallons and gallons of blood. Fortunately, we couldn't shoot anymore because he was covered in blood. So we couldn't match it. It would have taken like 2 hours to do a turnaround. So we were forced to really go from the first blood to him totally covered and soaked. That was all we had. So by the end of it, you can't use that footage for the beginning of the scene. And it's almost too much to use at the end of the scene. So we got what we got, and a lot of the reactions are pretty real. It was a surreal scene on set. It felt like, we had done something very wrong. Something awful had just happened, and none of us wanted to talk about it.
And what about Jeremy Renner? Why did you cast him, and what does he bring to the film?
I love Jeremy Renner. I love how hard he commits to things. There's an intensity about him in everything he does. Hurt Locker is really inspirational too. Just seeing that intensity. So to have that kind of energy on set, I love mixing up a drama actor with comedy actors. I cast Alison Tolman, who actually is Second City, but you know her from Fargo, and who is the other? We have other. Anyway, we cast some other drama people. That just there's something that happens when you have drama and comedic actors working together. There's a spark that you can't really identify, but it's a crackle because of those different styles, and it just creates something unexpected. So I, as a viewer, I love watching it, and even just as like a fan of like, oh my God, it's Jeremy Renner and Will Ferrell. It was the same feeling of like, hey, it's Seth Rogen and Zac Efron, putting them and Neighbors together, like pitching those guys and watching them sitting across the table at each other. It was super clear that was going to work, just because you're throwing those energies together. So I don't know. It's sort of like chemistry. You know, it's like a chemistry experiment of just what happens when you add like bromine and hydrogen chloride. That's Will and Renner. Those are the elements that they're most like. No, sorry. But yeah, so it's sort of like what happens when you combine those two. Yeah.
And with Will and Amy, I guess you already kind of had the chemistry there. Yeah. You knew that it was going to be there. What's it like seeing them work together? It's a dream. I mean, day one, we didn't do rehearsals. So day one was rehearsals. And I had them it was the financial advisor scene that's in the trailer. And we did the scene 6 different ways. You know, there was one way where they said, you're going to pretend to be us, we're going to pretend to be our daughter, and you're going to say we don't have enough money for college. So it's something that elaborate. Can't be in the movie, but to get these guys kind of into their characters and into being husband and wife, it was exactly what we needed. And I just watched the footage. It's like right away, you're like, this is something special. They're going to crackle like this the whole movie, and they did. And did they give you quite a hard time when it came to editing the film, having sort of too many choices in a way?
Yeah.
What was that process like?
Yeah, you kind of, you reach a point, or I reach a point on every project where there's too much, and it's overwhelming, and that's sort of the gut check moment where you go, okay, what are we making? Like, what is this? And then that's where you really have to start whittling down, and it starts really getting better. It helps you hone it. So it's almost like you don't know what it is until you see it. And then once you've seen it, then you can even work. And then maybe you need to do reshoots. Maybe you need an additional scene between this scene and that scene. Sometimes you don't know until you've shot the movie, edited the movie, put it in front of an audience. So it's all a learning process. And I think if you could pay attention to both what your actors are giving you, what your audience is giving you, what your crew is giving you, I think being sensitive to all of that helps make a better movie. And just being open to ideas from everywhere too, getting like the key grip, having a funny joke that you put in a scene because you don't have an ego. Like part of it is just get out of your own way. Don't, you're not always the smartest person in the room. You might be the most excited and you might have drank the most coffee, but, and you might be jumping higher than anybody on set, but you need the people. It's a collaborative medium. So it's that feeling of, talk about creating a family with the Johansens, but also creating a family on set, and just a weird, dysfunctional family with, weird jokes and trying to top each other in terms of making people laugh. That's what it's all about.
And when it comes to a blooper reel in the end credits, occasionally I have to say my heart sinks a little bit because I think,
yes,
they're not always that funny. Like you've enjoyed the film and then,
yeah,
that wasn't really all that funny. But I think this one is great, and I would urge everyone to stay in their seats to watch it.
Oh, cool!
Very funny. Yeah, how well does it reflect kind of the atmosphere on set, and why did you want to end the film with that? Yeah.
That is reflective of the atmosphere on set. There were so many times when these guys would crack each other up, whether Jason just losing it over something that Amy said, or that he himself said. It's really hard. It's and I almost don't. I try not to keep it in, because if I keep it in, I'll do the and it's almost louder. So I'll just let myself laugh, and I almost want them to know that I'm laughing because they're doing so damn well. So I think they ought to know it. And I try to yell out during takes. I think it just keeps people on their toes. I've watched a lot of directors do it that way, and it just keeps things light and surprising. And I think that's what you want. You just want to be surprised, and almost you're recording something that's unfolding in front of you rather than you're making people do what you want them to do. It's a whole different approach. But I feel like you get a better result.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys. Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey You Guys!